Good morning, everyone. Sarah, if you're happy, I'm going to begin. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Great. Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome. My name is Aidan Brown. I'm Senior Lecturer at Belfast Metropolitan College, and it was with great pleasure that I accepted the invitation from my friend and colleague Sarah Lyons to act as host for today's event. We're going to be hearing two fascinating speakers, Emma Borland and Lorraine McCaffrey from the Northern Ireland Civil Service, who have intertwining, very different stories, but stories which I know that you'll find very informative and very engaging, because we're delighted that both speakers have joined us today. This is one of a number of webinars which the college has been organising, and Sarah has been actively involved in promoting the IT sector, the opportunities in the IT sector, and the opportunities for career development and indeed career changes in the sector as well. There are a whole wide range of activities, of conferences, of summer schemes, of YouTube videos for you to watch. And at this point, with her thoughts, it's my great pleasure to invite my colleague Sarah Lyons to address our meeting today. Sarah.
Thank you, Aidan. As Aidan has kindly introduced, I am Sarah Lyons from Belfast Met, and I lead the delivery of the Bring It On programme. So Bring It On is a programme which is funded by the Department for the Economy, and it's all about raising awareness on careers and pathways into the IT sector for all new entrants. So you may be joining us today thinking, gosh, isn't IT a career just for somebody who is a university graduate, who is really techie, who is really academically gifted? So I'm really here today to bust those myths, to tell you that you don't need to be. Of course, that is relevant for some careers, but you don't need to be all of those things. There are relevant pathways into the sector and relevant job roles that you could do. And I hope that through this webinar today that you will have the confidence perhaps to explore some of those different avenues. So really what I'm going to spend a short time talking about at the beginning of this webinar is I'm going to look at the reasons why you might choose to go into the IT sector. So what are the benefits of working in a role in IT? I'm also going to talk about the different pathways that you could take to get into the sector. And then I'm going to move on to looking at some of the companies who are active in Northern Ireland today. And then we'll move on to hear from our guests. So firstly, then, why might you consider a career in IT? Well, the salaries are usually higher. So according to information published by NISRA at the end of last year, our local statistics and research agency, the average salary for a career in the tech industry in Northern Ireland is £40,000, and that compares to an average salary of £27,000 across all industries. There are so many great jobs right here in Northern Ireland. So a report by TechNation just again at the end of last year showed that a quarter of all vacancies in Northern Ireland are for tech jobs. There are around 60,000 people who are working in tech today in Belfast. And really, it just gives you an insight into the number of companies that are active. So around 1,200 tech companies, and that number is growing because Belfast is seen as such an attractive city for companies to come and set up. It's really a tech-friendly city, and we have so many startups, so many job adverts, so there's a lot really going for our region in terms of attractiveness for companies coming in to Northern Ireland. As part of a team in the IT sector, you get to thrive personally, working across many different projects, which I'm sure we're going to hear about later on, and you really have a rewarding career. This next point we come to is relaxed and informal working environment. Quite often before we were all in lockdown, I would have had the great pleasure of visiting a great many different IT companies around Northern Ireland. Quite often they had lovely areas where people could relax and socialise, maybe play games, and just have a nice old time, a nice downtime once people have finished their work. But increasingly online, what we are seeing is really in initiatives where people are still able to get together. They're maybe doing online bake-offs, online cook-alongs, and what I've mentioned in the last couple of webinars is that Allstate had brought Mr. Motivator in to get people happy and motivated, and there's a real focus on resilience, which is important at any time, but in particular at the time that we find ourselves in at the moment. So next we have opportunities to work in many different industries. So in a large organization, you could be working on any type of IT project. You could be working in an IT position in any company, actually. There are many different career paths into IT. So when I talk about IT, I'm not just talking about one role or one area. So big areas that you may have heard of, for example, are AI, cyber, fintech, or you may not know anything about those, and that's okay too. Hopefully we'll be able to point you to some guidance where you can find out more. And one of our recent webinar guests put it very nicely when he was talking about career paths in IT. He described it as being almost like a forest, so where you start off on one trail, but if you can imagine the amount of different paths and the amount of different trails that you could take, so you may start off doing one thing in one area, but you may decide you want to go into something else. And the beauty about taking a career in IT is that you have that opportunity. You'll always have opportunities to keep learning, to challenge yourself. Nothing stands still in the tech space. There are always new things emerging and coming out. So it's a real opportunity to challenge yourself and also explore your creative side. Coming from a different industry, you're going to have a huge amount to add to teams. You'll add a real value and enrich teams with a different view. And I know that's really attractive for a lot of different employers. So we're going to move on now to look at the different pathways into IT, and there are many and varied depending on your experience and whether you're academic or not. So the first is, of course, the more traditional route. So you could take A-levels in any subject. Sometimes maths is preferred, but it's not required all the time by universities. You could take a BTEC diploma or extended diploma at one of our local further education colleges. So that could be in a wide range of subjects from IT to games development, cyber, network and infrastructure. You may, as I said earlier, you might not know what any of those things are, but there are a lot of further education colleges that are having their open days online now, so do go along to those, find out about the different courses that are available at the further education colleges and what's available in your area, and see what interests you. You could also do a OCR level 2 diploma in IT. If you then have A-level or equivalent qualifications, I always apologise at this stage for talking in levels, so that's a feeling of us in the further education sector speaking about A-levels. So level 3 is equivalent to 2 A-level passes. Then so if you have A-level or equivalent, you could go to university and consider doing a full-time degree or a part-time degree in an IT-related course. You may consider doing a foundation degree at a further education college or an HND. Apprenticeship's an interesting one. So an apprenticeship is where you will study alongside getting your qualification. So typically with Belfast Met, you will apply for a position. So you are an employee, you are in a job with an employer, and at the start of the apprenticeship you complete a boot camp, which is usually 6 weeks in the college, and then you will study for 1 day a week and work for 4 days a week. So you're really getting that hands-on experience, which is invaluable. And then another big thing, which Aidan always talks about, is that you won't be paying any fees if you're doing the higher level apprenticeship, which is equivalent to a foundation degree. So you'll have been earning money, you will have been gaining experience, and you won't have any fees. So there's a lot of benefits. If you like to get in and get involved and learn, that's a great way for you to get into to get into the sector. There are many employer-sponsored degree programs. For example, KNOS has one, Deloitte has one, PwC has one. Pretty much all the big employers would have tech degree programs as well, so do look into those. If you have a degree level qualification, again, why not look at your local college? There are many amazing, a great variety of qualifications, from the techie qualifications to something like design or project management qualifications as well. So it's, again, what do you think would be most appropriate for you? You could look at graduate traineeships or employment from non-IT related degrees, or there is something at the moment which is very relevant for, so if you have been impacted by the COVID pandemic, there is an initiative, again, funded by the Department for the Economy, which is called the Skills Intervention Programme. So this, if you're eligible, then you will have access to free training in a wide variety of different topics, including technical topics and, for example, Microsoft Technical Associate qualifications, Cisco Cyber qualifications. So if you go to any online search engine and type in Skills Intervention Programme Northern Ireland, that will bring you a list of different academic providers and the courses that are on offer for free at the moment. So that is a great way to get upskilled. Next, we move on to the bottom row there, Assured Skills Academies. So Assured Skills Academies is something that Aidan and I know a lot about. Aidan's more so than me, because as he would say, you can't tell from his wrinkle-free brow, but he has been involved in maybe 100 of these Assured Skills Academies at Belfast Met now. So Assured Skills Academies, again, is a programme which is funded by the Department for the Economy. It's a pre-employment programme for graduates who have any discipline. It doesn't matter what discipline they have, they can apply to the programme. It's aligned with a specific employer, depending on what type of training it is. It's usually around 6 to 8 weeks long. It may be a little bit longer if it's technical course. So at the moment we are kicking off an Assured Skills Academy for Internet of Things. We have one running at the moment that's for software testing. We have a business consultancy academy running. So there's a wide variety of different academies running. And what the beauty about this is you, again, qualifications, industry qualifications, you gain experience, and you have a high potential of getting a job at the end. So just to give you a wee bit of an insight into the figures, we have delivered 12 academies since COVID started, and 230 people have gone into jobs in that period from Assured Skills. So, and since 2013, around 1,200 people have gone into jobs through Assured Skills at Belfast Met. So those are people who previously could have been unemployed, underemployed, or they were just wanting to change. They were doing something completely different. And we've actually heard stories from people who have completed Assured Skills Academies on some of our previous webinars. So if you go and have a look at our webinar channel on YouTube, you'll see some stories from previous Assured Skills graduates who are now working in the tech sector in Northern Ireland. You could consider doing a master's degree in an IT related subject, or a master's conversion course. Again, master's conversion course is something that we covered during our last webinar. We spoke to 2 gentlemen from Liberty IT who had completed a master's conversions course and heard their stories. Again, people who didn't have techie degrees but managed to get into the tech sector through the master's conversion course. So there are such a huge number of IT sector employers in Northern Ireland. We're delighted to have the Northern Ireland Civil Service with us today, who are a huge employer of IT professionals in Northern Ireland. Other companies that you see on the screen here are Aflac. So Aflac set up a European Centre of Excellence in Belfast, and they have grown from 19 people in March last year up to over 70 today. Fintru is a Belfast Derry based fintech company, and they created a huge amount of new jobs during lockdown. Who else? City, they have been constantly onboarding people during the lockdown. Version 1 is a Dublin headquartered IT service provider, and they've established a digital development hub in Belfast, and they're going to create a lot of specialist jobs, 70 specialist jobs by October next year. Nuada announced a £20 million investment and 230 new jobs with average salaries of around 43,000. Liberty IT is going to be recruiting for 150 new roles in the next 12 months. With opportunities in software engineering, architecture, data science, AI. May have seen recently KPMG announced that they were going to have a centre in Belfast as well, and quite a lot of their roles are going to come from the Assured Skills route. So that's a really whistle-stop tour of some of the employers that we have in Northern Ireland at the moment and how they are thriving, even in the pandemic times that we're in at the moment. So it is really amazing what is happening in the tech space in Northern Ireland right now, and the opportunities that are out there and the opportunities that we know are still to come. If you do want to consider a career in IT, or what should you do next? What are your next steps? Well, the Department for the Economy have an excellent careers service, and that's for anyone really to avail of. They have a careers occupational information unit, and they have recently published information, quite detailed information with videos on data analytics and also on software engineering. If you know somebody at the moment who's working in tech, why not have a chat with them? You could chat with one of our Bring It On ambassadors. You could also build up contacts through online platforms, for example, Meetup and Eventbrite or SyncNI. There's so many different events online that you could go to something probably every day and explore new areas of the sector through those free online events. You could also look at doing some online courses, free online. There's lots of free resources online. Open University have a great Open Learn platform, which really is excellent and gives you a large range of tech qualifications, which are completely free again. So now we come to a very exciting part of the webinar where we're going to move on and say a very, very warm welcome to Emma and Lorraine, who are joining us from the civil service, and Aidan's going to chat to them a little bit about their experience.
Thank you very much indeed. Sarah, I don't know about anybody else on the call today, but I'm slightly exhausted listening to Sarah's schedule because she's constantly talking to people who are considering joining a career in IT at any stage. And I just thought that was lovely, Sarah, what you said today. If you're listening today and you're running a business and you want free training, there's an option for you. If you're at school and you're thinking about, as we heard just yesterday from someone who had university offers on the table, her two brothers had done that and she decided not to do that and go into work with Kainos and get her degree that way, earning while she was learning. And then, as you know, again, I have to declare my own personal interest in this as a parent of two adult graduate children with significant amounts of debt. I was really interested to hear about how you get a degree without having to pay for it, and also the Assured Skills pathway as well. But thank you so much, Sarah, for all you're doing and for giving so much expert advice to people throughout this. We have two really great speakers today. I've enjoyed reading about them. I have more than that enjoyed meeting them recently, and I know you're going to enjoy hearing from them today. So I'm going to start, Emma, with you, in that we're going to hear both speakers just briefly kind of tell us a little bit about the work that they do and the organization that they work for. And then when we've put that little bit of color on the canvas, then you're going to get some very interesting information about how they got there. So I wonder, Emma, would you be kind enough to start us off, please?
Yes. Hello. So I'm Emma Borland and I'm working with the Northern Ireland Civil Service. I'm currently working with the Department of Finance, and at the moment I'm working on an IT project. I work alongside Lorraine, who's the project manager, and at the moment we're helping to implement a digital asset management system.
Thank you so much, Emma. In a couple of minutes' time, I'm going to ask Emma to give us her career journey, and I really will ask you to buckle up and try to concentrate on that because it's very interesting. I was aware there that you're under no pressure today because you're talking about the boss, because you're talking about your project manager. So, Lorraine, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what your team does, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Lorraine McCaffrey, and as Emma has alluded, I'm the project manager for the Digital Asset Management System, an ICT project. We refer to it as DAMS. It's a project that encompasses all of the Northern Ireland Civil Service. So at the moment, lots of our business areas in the Northern Ireland Civil Service store digital assets, images, videos and audio files in several different locations. And we're now trying to develop a system that will allow them to store in one particular area and, obviously have lots of really good features to enable business areas to be able to be more effective in their day-to-day life.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for sharing that, both speakers today. Lorraine, I'm going to be coming back to you to talk about Six Sigma and other things the other tools that you use to solve things a little bit later on in this. But what's hugely interesting for people joining us today, and this is something which we did when we ran an academy Sarah and I were involved with Microsoft, and they were very generous in providing us with really great speakers, premier field engineers from right around the world, and they would tell us what they did. But I always preempted that when I was getting them to speak to our graduates about tell us your story. So I'm going to say buckle up now and listen to this story, because it's a story of a great range of employment, but also a great deal of courage. So Emma, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I've had quite a varied employment background and studying as well too. So I studied my degree in art and design, which is very different to ICT. But from there, I was working as a visual merchandiser. I've been working on makeup counters. I've worked in a car dealership. I worked as a support worker, and then my role prior to this one, I was working as an activity therapist in a nursing home. So yeah, I've had quite a range of careers, and then I seen the application for the apprenticeship Sarah touched on earlier. So it was the level 3 apprenticeship, and it was the 4 days working with the civil service, 1 day studying, and then at the end of that it was a full-time job then, and an automatic promotion, which was great because I hadn't been exposed to that much IT experience, or had no qualifications previously. So it gave me that opportunity to get into the tech sector. So yeah, it was great.
Those are magic words, aren't they? Full-time job and automatic promotion. You can just see the light icon being hit by so many people listening to this today. I should have mentioned this earlier on, but both Lorraine and Emma very generously have agreed to answer questions that we might have. So if you have a question which you'd like to ask, just type it into the chat bar. And just to clarify, that rank has its privilege. So Emma's going to be dealing with the very straightforward questions, and if they're really, really difficult questions, then Lorraine's going to take those. So just to let you know, that's how it works. Before I move on to Lorraine, I just wanted to say that I should say this about Sarah, because you mentioned, Emma, working in the motor industry. Sarah has experience about working internationally in the automotive industry, and she's traveled to Iran on more than 10 occasions, and has a great deal of experience in that sector as well. And what I was really interested, Emma, when you were chatting, and it reminded me something that Sarah mentioned earlier on, is that your background initially, your degree background in art and design. When Sarah mentioned the software development course, we've had graduates who've come on that, and I always say, tell us about who was sitting beside you. So the guys that were on from Liberty were telling us about a guy who was sitting beside them who had a fantastic, fabulous artisan cake business, and his background was in performing arts. We've had media people. We have had now working for Microsoft a ballet teacher, ballet dancer and ballet teacher. So there is no discipline that we haven't had, and we'll hear a little bit more about maybe the challenges that you face and how you've overcome them so successfully. So Lorraine, tell us, you've had a track record of achievement which has led you to managing people and resources. Tell us about your journey, please.
Well, I haven't had as flamboyant a career history as Emma, but I went to Queen's University and my primary degree was information management, which did include some ICT modules. I then did my master's in human resource management at University of Ulster. So I joined the civil service for 1 year, and 20 years later, I'm still here. And primarily the reason for that is, the opportunities that it does offer, in terms of very different disciplines. I started off in the training unit, so delivering training, moved on then to information management, then to business consultancy, and then I ran a Lean Six Sigma program. Now I've transferred over to project managing an ICT project, which I've already spoken about. So over a 20-year career, it's 5-6 different posts within the Northern Ireland Civil Service.
Can I just ask you about that? I mean, it is very varied. We'll talk about Six Sigma later on, because I was reading just online last night about a guy who's working for Tata and Steel and how they use Six Sigma. Could I go back, and this is something which Sarah talks about quite a lot in promoting diversity in IT. Can I go back to your first degree? Because there's a very articulate speaker who I like reading on Twitter called Kate Gutowski, and she says, if I can see it, I can be it. If I can see it, I can be it. If you would look around that lecture theatre in your first degree, gender balance and gender breakdown in the lecture theatre, please.
Certainly would have been more male to female. Yeah, certainly in the degree that I did, yes. Yeah,
and that's certainly something which Sarah is leading on with the Belfast IT Girls Academy, which is a summer program which we run to encourage young women. And just in the webinar which we recorded yesterday, there was someone from a biomedical sciences degree background, and she said she went to a talk and there were two programmers there talking, and she thought, well, I can be like them, I can be like those women. I want to take that career. I want to go. I'm going to ask both of you this question. I'm going to go back to Emma just for a second. And Emma, if I'm saying to you now, talk specifically about what you have done, and that would be my question to you would be, if there's someone on with us now, and Lana's asked a question about, do I need ICT to be a social worker? I'll maybe get both speakers to talk about that. But if I'm saying to you specifically, Emma, somebody watching this, somebody recording this, maybe somebody over the Easter break looking at this again and saying, I'm thinking of starting again. I'm in a job. I want something more than that. What would your advice be? Because you've done this.
I think really some of the points Sarah touched on too, research what is out there, what opportunities there is to get you into that industry. When I was looking up the ways in, I realized that actually one of my friends had done the apprenticeship previously. So knowing people who have actually done those as well, and being able to speak to them and gauge their experiences to see if it's actually what you anticipate it's going to be and what you're actually getting yourself into before you undertake it. But yeah, that's the main thing, just speaking to people and putting the word out there to see what is out there. I think it's been the most helpful thing. And I think as well too, with the civil service, researching that, it's the promotion opportunities were something that really enticed me to them, and the option to do that. With a lot of my careers in the past, there was the option not really to go anywhere else. There wasn't those opportunities, whereas with the civil service and with IT, there is, like talked about, there's so many strands and so many different opportunities and careers that you could actually get into. So I think that was something that really enticed me.
I don't want to lead the witness here, but you said something which Sarah and I talk about all the time, which is doing research and talking to people. How did you talk to people? Did you go to online events? Did you email people? Did you read an article online and follow it up? How do you do? If somebody was sitting this going, Emma, that's great, I'd love to be like you, how should I do that? What would you say?
Yeah, I think firstly I went online, researched and looked what there was about, and then it was more sending the feelers out to people I knew who were in similar careers or that knew people that worked in that career, just to see if they knew what was going on within their organisation, within their business, if there was any opportunities or possibilities of areas I could get into or people you could talk to firsthand.
I think those conversations and opportunities are absolutely invaluable. In that, we were joined, Sarah, on the last call by a careers teacher who was saying, you know, I'm teaching 4 days a week this subject, and I'm joining you on the call today. How on earth could a careers teacher be across what's happening in IT and cyber and biomedical science and medicine and law and media and journalism? How could you be that? How could you be in that situation? I know, just from my own point of view, my son has just graduated in business and management, and he, when he was at school, was interested in law. So I arranged a placement with him with a barrister for a week. And he came back and said, that was really great. And what's great about it is I now know I don't want to study law. Mm-hmm. You know, that's super if you can have a conversation like that. Sarah and I have talked to lots of recovering lawyers and other people like that who are academically bright at school, and were kind of somehow directed into a path that they followed. Did you, I mean, Emma, and I'm going to come to Lorraine in a minute, because you kind of said you were there for a year and now you've kind of risen through the ranks. Emma, do you have an approach when you approach people? Do you send them an email? Do you refer to something that they've read? Do you go to an event? What's the best way if somebody's going, well, I really don't know how to network? What have you done that has led you to this point?
I think obviously coming into the civil service and doing the apprenticeship and stuff like that, I wasn't aware as much as like the likes of these webinars and stuff like that. I think they're such great resources to find out more information on things like that. But before, I would have more, I think the internet was just search everything you could, and then once I found out the contacts of people, yeah, it would have been if there was a number, pick up the phone. If you're not as confident to pick up the phone, an email, just to make contacts and just to try and get a feel for that industry, really, or that job that you're seeking. And
you know, a no is a no. All that somebody can do is not answer your email or put the phone down. There's a fabulous lady that I have worked with called Vicky Taggart, who's head of production at Stellify Media, and they make big shows. They make, you know, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and lots of programs like that. But when she's talking about network, going, why haven't you picked up the phone? Why haven't you picked up the phone? You know, to graduates, when we get her through the Royal Television Society to talk to graduates, she's saying, do that. It takes a wee bit of bottle to do it, but you can get a lot out of that. I'm going to come back. I'm fascinated by what you're saying, but Lorraine, I want you to tell us about what you were thinking at the end of the first year and the different directions, because you now are responsible for people. You're responsible for a lot of qualifications and training. And how have you coped with the change, with the, maybe constant change is the wrong term to use, but there's been a lot of change in your profession, hasn't there?
Yeah, there certainly has, but I think it's something I've always been very comfortable with. And if you look back at my my career history, much of my job has been about implementing change. Yeah. When you go back even to information management, I was in that branch at a time when freedom of information was introduced. And I also was part of the team that implemented the electronic document record management system within the Northern Ireland Civil Service. So that was a huge change where people, business areas were storing documents, as we all do on our laptops and PCs and desktops and so forth, and having to change the whole culture of the organisation to having to store documents within a electronic central area. Massive change, but freedom of information changed everything. Then when you move forward to business consultancy, well, that was the core of why we were called in to try and improve business areas and to try and help them change their processes. Lean Six Sigma was exactly that. That was the very core of that as well. And here we are again with an ICT project, which is going to again impact across the NICS and how they do their day and daily work. So I've always been very comfortable with change, and I naturally always think that there's a better way of doing something. So it's lent itself quite well.
We could do a whole webinar on that.
Absolutely.
Quotation, how to lead so others follow willingly. Yeah. I want to just want to have your expertise here, because it's something I'm really interested in, because Sarah and I are working actually today with a PwC Academy graduates going for employment and going for interviews. Could I put you, Lorraine, ask you to wear your hat as chair of interview panel? Okay, so you've talked about some of the technical skills that you look for as an employer when you're interviewing candidates. Could you reflect just for a second on the kind of things that would impress you on a CV, the kind of things that would impress you in an interview in terms of someone? And this is where we get lost in the mire of what is the correct term. Is it soft skills? Is it human skills? Is it what do you, things that impress you on the panel when you're interviewing people?
Yeah, I think when you are the interviewee, you get very caught up in content and wanting to say the right thing and knowing particularly if it's ICT, about knowing the ins and outs about particular programming, etc., etc. But what always impresses me is people's passion or their enthusiasm, and that can very much come across in an interview, and you can sense that people are very interested and very vested and want that opportunity. And I have to admit that's something that would strike with me, because when you're doing interviews, everyone generally will have all of the similar qualifications. They will have all of the maybe some similar backgrounds, but certainly enthusiasm would definitely be a key factor.
That's great. And just one more, because I kind of didn't give you advance warning of this, but that's just in my nature. I think that's very, very helpful. Can you, when you're thinking of the things that people do outside, is there anything which would impress you on an interview panel in terms of seeing a rounded person? And Sarah and I worked with a lady from a cybersecurity company, and she talked about the soft skills as being very important, because she said if there's been a breach in a data, in a business, and I send an analyst out, the first thing I want them to think is, what's the impact on this person's life? What's the impact on this person's set of relationships because their business has been compromised? Anything that you like to see on a CV? I'm thinking about competitive sport. I'm thinking something which is collegial, where you're involved. Anything like that helps?
Well, I've had a very background in sporting activity myself, so of course that would be something I would align to. What I would say is, don't be afraid to use examples of being in a football team or in a hockey team or an individual sport. You're trying to demonstrate the competency, and people tend to get themselves tied up in knots thinking that they need business examples or educational examples. I've seen some very good interviewees cite excellent examples from their sporting careers that have been very, very impressive and has very clearly demonstrated the competency.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant to hear that from the employer, because I attended an event recently where the two speakers from PwC, Jill Wright and Alan Drake, and they were saying, look, what we want is collegiality. What we want is, if you finished your work, don't go, well, I finished, why haven't you? It's, I finished my work, how can I help you? And that kind of team, that sense of team, and bringing everyone with you, which is what you need. Emma, can I come to you now and talk about the kind of, we talked about, and Lorraine's commented brilliantly on the soft skills. Could you tell us about the kind of key skills that you would identify, both the human and the technical, to kind of drive forward some of the innovative solutions that you're looking for? What do you use to make things happen?
I think one of the main skills from most of my jobs, like transferable skills brought across, is probably communication skills. We're talking with outside suppliers, internal bodies within the civil service, and it's just the communication between all those people and making sure that whatever is needed gets across to them. I think those communication channels are so important, and it's a really important skill to have, especially in IT, because obviously some people can get caught up, like Lorraine had mentioned, with the development and the programming and stuff like that, but it's being able to actually talk to the customers and the businesses about those systems that are being put in place in a way that they understand as well.
Yeah. That's so interesting. We worked with a big consulting company running an academy, and we've had, Sarah can tell you this, we've had every background. We've had ministers, we've had solicitors, accountants, teachers, you name it. We've had it, and one of the companies employed a journalist, and I, as a journalist, and some of my best friends are journalists, I said to the employer, "What do you want him for?" And he said, "Because he can tell a story." And the story is just exactly what Emma has said there. You're working with a client, you establish a relationship with the client, you're saying to the client, work with us, follow our advice, work in partnership with us. Productivity will improve, profit will improve, there'll be less churn in terms of the HR side, and establishing that relationship. Incredibly important. I'm going to come back with another question for Emma in a second, but Lorraine, I want to go to you now, and you mentioned Six Sigma, you mentioned a couple of other things. Key skills, key things that you do to drive forward innovative solutions. What are the tools that you use as a leader?
Well, I suppose first and foremost, you would need to have strong project management skills. The current project we're operating at the moment is used with Prince2. And it's really, really important because obviously every ICT project has got a budget and a time frame for delivery. So that's vital that we report to governance boards, etc., to ensure that those are carried out in time. But a key part, just drawing on from what Emma has said, Emma and I we're like the piggy in the middle, as it were. We're the translators. We've got the developers. We have an external company that's actually building and configuring the system. We're the piggy in the middle, then communicating with different business areas within the NICS and making sure that we take their needs and implement that within the system. However, what you find is quite a bit is that people want what they've always had. So we have to challenge that thinking to ensure that, and that's where, my past in business consultancy, Lean Six Sigma. So to ensure that you're just not replicating what's already there, you're actually ensuring the best process is being developed. And this is a Northern Ireland Civil Service wide solution. So it's not about what business area A want and business area B want. It's very much about what's best for all business areas. And Em and I would be very much, in the throes of trying to communicate what's technically feasible with the developers, and then what the business need is required, and then what is the corporate need, and very much balancing all of those three together. So negotiation skills, influencing skills, very important, but not losing sight of the vision of what the actual system is there to do and to deliver. So a combination of all of those.
And very much it reminded me of Jessica Waterworth, yesterday, Dr. Jessica Waterworth, who's working with AFLIC. The skills of a general practitioner, really. If you say to someone, why can't you stop smoking? Well, that's of no help to that. Why can't you exercise more and lose weight? That's not in any way going to solve a problem. I can do it, why can't you? Is not going to, someone once said about the footballer Roy Keane, he couldn't manage players that weren't as good as he was. Just couldn't understand why they couldn't be as brilliant as he was. Coaching, mentoring, teaching is very different. I have two more questions for each of you, and I wanted to go to Emma, and I want to ask this question because it was very much on my mind at the minute. Someone who's joining us today. Now, we had a very funny moment recently. Sarah will tell you about where we had a teacher on a call who said, I would now like to retrain and come into the IT sector. My pupils could look after themselves. No, he didn't put it quite like that. But someone listening today, Emma, I'm going to ask you this question and then Lorraine, someone who's in full-time education, whether that be at school in sixth form or doing a degree or an HND or a foundation degree, and they're considering a career in IT, what would your advice without even thinking about it be?
I think do the research. If it's something that you're really interested in, go for it. You're never going to know until you try. I think that's one of the most important things I've been told. You don't want to look back in years to come and think, what if? At least trying it, you'll know, like you said earlier, like that work experience. If you do it and you find out you don't like it, that's fine. And I think that's kind of how I've went through my past working. I was always at school, never knew. I was one of those people, didn't know what I wanted to do, as you could probably tell. But yeah, I think the best way to find out and figure out is by trying things, and you're never going to know until you try those things. And if you can say from I don't want to do that, or there's no progression here for me, I don't see a future in this, at least you've done it, you've tried it, and then you can move on to wherever you see yourself next. And yeah.
Okay, cheeky supplementary before I move on to Lorraine. If I'm speaking to your 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old art and design student saying, have you considered a career in IT? What would you have thought and said at that time?
I actually did. It was one of my choices. I actually, IT and business was one of my choices. I actually got accepted in to do it at Queen's. But I don't know, I just, at that age, it was my passion. I enjoyed art, and that's what I wanted to do. And I definitely wouldn't regret doing it. The people I met, the experiences I had, it's completely shaped me as a person. But doing the degree made me realize it's not what I wanted to do full time as a career. And it opened the door, I suppose, to move on from there and to be able to try different things and to grow on the experiences that I already had. So, yeah.
But professionally, it's about seeing creative solutions to challenges and so forth. You mentioned your work in the care sector, and I wondered if we could just pick up on one of the questions which came through in the chat, which was, do I need ICT to work in social work? How much IT did you see when you were working in the care sector being used by a range of people?
Not. The jobs that I was doing, it was more using IT in terms of I was an activity therapist, so it would have been for like entertainment purposes or activities like that. So I wouldn't have seen it or been exposed to it that much. To be honest, yeah.
But I suppose it underpins everything that you do in the analysis of data and what's going on and who's responding to this and so forth. And Sarah pointed out this: if anyone is joining the call today, whatever stage you are, there are part-time and full-time options available to study IT and to learn skills, and they certainly will not be wasted. And I'm going to go back and ask Lorraine that question as well. So I asked you very cheekily about the gender balance or imbalance, I think we could say, in the lecture theatre in your undergraduate days. Someone joining the call today who's completing an HND or completing BTEC or completing A-levels or completing a foundation degree, thinking about a career in IT, Lorraine, what would you say to them?
Well, my A-level, I did computer science at A-level, and I was really interested in ICT. But back in Queen's and today, I had one option, basically coding, just doing a coding or programming degree at Queen's, and I didn't want to do that. And it's really good to see that the opportunities, and Sarah, you mentioned there's the ICT can mean so many different things. So what I did then was, that's why I went to information management degree. It was elements of ICT, but it wasn't just primarily about coding. But at the moment, there's so many opportunities, and it's great to see that things have changed. In the civil service itself, you've got programming areas, you've got cybersecurity. Like, that's something I'm particularly interested in. And I have to admit, if I was back being 18 years of age, I may well have went down that road. You've got networking and the web teams, so there's such a variety of opportunities. So I think the lesson for me, or the lesson I would say to anyone listening, is don't think ICT is just coding and programming. And, obviously, all I know is the NICS, and I can tell you we have a huge IT department that has got all of those different facets, which gives you an opportunity to learn maybe what area you are interested in, because at 18, 19, I don't think I would know, and I still don't know. So it gives you that opportunity to try and, as Emma says, try it. So what's the worst that can happen?
Well, exactly. What's the worst that can happen? You can come back of your week-long work experience with a barrister and say, I don't want to be a lawyer. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You would be, I would imagine, Lorraine, responsible for a lot of professional qualifications, a lot of CPD opportunities, and that's essential, isn't it? The days maybe in the past where you got a degree and you got something else and that was you. I'd imagine your business and ICT, your retraining regularly.
It's part and parcel of your, of whatever you're doing at that point in time. You get the qualifications, you get whatever's needed at the time. And they are useful to have, relevant to whatever it is that the role that you're in. And again, the NICS will support you in that. So for example, I had to go over to England to complete a Green Belt Lean Six Sigma training. So, which was relevant for that particular role. If you come into a particular area, they'll assess what's needed and they'll support you in ensuring you've all the skills, needed to carry out the role.
Brilliant. And it's really great to hear this, and it's so inspirational for people to be able to listen live, as we've many people listening live, but so many more people will watch this afterwards. I know Sarah's going to wrap up at the end and talk about how how you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and do all of those things. But I want to kind of bring the kind of formal part of our chat to the end by asking each of you, and we'll start with Emma, about the best piece of advice you've ever had. Now, that does not necessarily need to be technical advice, but it can be about career, it can be about personal advice. You've already talked about rolling the dice and saying, well, I wasn't happy doing that, I'd like to try something else. There's a lot of courage involved in that. But when you both think back, starting with Emma, can you think of the best piece of advice that you've been given that has influenced and shaped your career?
I think the point I touched on earlier about you don't want to look back in years to come. Like people just getting told, don't look back and have those regrets of not trying the things. I think that has really influenced a lot of my career, because like Lorraine said too, like you don't know until you try something and what is the worst that can happen. But yeah, I think that's probably the best piece of advice I've been given.
About not having regrets. It's an interesting point. A great broadcasting hero of mine, David Dunseith, used to say, you know, when I'm on my deathbed, I'll not be saying I wish I spent more time at the BBC. You happen to love his work, and if you're happy in your work and content in it, that really is a big thing. I suppose, could you reflect on this maybe in two strands, Lorraine, maybe as personally and maybe as a manager as well, the best piece of advice that you have ever received?
I suppose it's more of an attitude. It's, you know, you work with so many different types of people, and you work in so many different facets. It's you know, be honest, but be honest and speak to others how you would like to speak to yourself. You know, someone to speak to yourself. I think it's massively important. You know, you don't want frustrations to grow, and you don't want you know, to be dishonest to yourself. I think it's really, really important that communication is probably it's notable that Emma pointed that out earlier when we were talking about one of the main areas of her role. I think that's probably one of the most important facets to take into the job, is to communicate very much you know, your own thinking, but also to really, really establish that and make sure that that is embedded within your team, that there's good communication chain and channels in place.
Brilliant. And then good communication is good for everyone. Thank you both.
Absolutely.
Very much indeed. Really, really inspirational stories today. And we thank you both very much indeed for sharing those. I mentioned the opportunities to keep in touch. You can have a look at this recording again on our YouTube channel. Sarah, just in closing, is there a thought that you want to make in terms of how we take this from there?
Thanks, Aidan, and thank you very much to Emma and Lorraine. I think we've heard yet again invaluable advice for people who do want to move into the tech sector. Is that the strong message is go and try it. What have you got to lose? And really, you know, Lorraine, from your experience, it was great to get an insight into how people can potentially succeed in interview panels by using some examples from their own experience as well, that those are taken into consideration and are valid to meet the competencies that you're looking for. And Emma, your route into IT from your very varied background is a really great story for those, and like the courageous steps that you took to get where you are today, and to apprenticeship and then immediate promotion is very impressive. And the breadth of experience that Lorraine has over so many different amazing projects, I have to say, really interesting projects in the Northern Ireland Civil Service. You, as Aidan said, you can view this webinar again, or you can recommend it to friends and family. It will be available on the Bring It On YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see links for all of this on our social media. So our social media is Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Bring It On NI. We will publish information about different events or other webinars that we're doing, or other things that we're involved in. For example, we're involved with the Women in Tech conference, which takes place tomorrow. So if you are a student, you can actually register for that for free. As Aidan mentioned, like, one of my passions is diversity in the tech sector, and we run a week-long summer camp called Belfast IT Girls every August. And in fact, the Northern Ireland Civil Service have been involved in that in the past and have provided mentors for that week-long summer camp. And I have to say, the mentors are vital as part of that week, because they make a real impression on the girls, and people who have been perhaps going down the route of medicine or law have totally changed their mind that week and decided to pursue a career in tech. So it is important to have those voices, and strong female voices, I have to say, as well. But thank you so much, ladies. It was such a pleasure to have you here with us today, and thanks again, Aidan, for your wonderful hosting skills.
Brilliant, a brilliant event. I'm just looking at the clock. We've been chatting and listening for almost an hour. I don't know where that hour has gone. enjoyable. I can think of a number of lectures I attended at university where I looked at my watch quite a few times. Not this is so much fun. We could stay here for an hour longer, but I think we've all been in that situation. Renewed thanks to you, Sarah, for making all of the organisation happen to bring us all together. We're so grateful to Emma and Lorraine for sharing their expertise, their thoughts, and their journey in such an open and friendly and inspirational way. Thank you for stopping by, everyone who has watched us, and we hope you'll join us again at a Belfast Met event in the very near future. Thank you.